Time was not a luxury, and the clock was already running faster than anyone could comprehend. Every second that slipped past carried with it the weight of impossibility, and yet, here you were, standing on the precipice of a decision that could change everything. Elon's eyes, figurative or literal, it didn't matter, were on you, and the world itself seemed to hold its breath. The mission was critical, the stakes astronomical, and there was no margin for error. If you hesitated, if even a fraction of doubt crept into your mind, the consequences would be immediate and irreversible. The room around you was silent, except for the subtle hum of machines tracking trajectories and the faint, distant echoes of voices from control centers scattered across the globe. The air carried a tension that was almost tactile, pressing against your chest, demanding action. In this moment, everything you had learned, every skill you had honed, and every ounce of intuition you had cultivated, would be tested. There was no manual for what you were about to do, no one-size-fits-all protocol. The situation demanded instinct and courage, a willingness to act decisively even when the path forward seemed uncertain. Elon's vision had always been audacious. It had seemed impossible when he first spoke of colonizing distant planets, transforming transportation, and fundamentally rewriting humanity's relationship with technology. Skeptics laughed, critics scoffed, but he had always moved forward, propelled by a relentless sense of urgency. And now, you were part of that vision, or at least you had the opportunity to be. The mission was on a knife's edge, balanced between extraordinary success and catastrophic failure. The tiniest misstep could render months, even years, of preparation meaningless. Time, as you realized in that instant, would not wait for hesitation. The countdown in your mind had already begun. There was no room for second-guessing. Decisions had to be made swiftly, precisely, with an awareness that every choice would ripple outward, affecting outcomes far beyond your immediate perception. Every moment was an opportunity, but also a threat. Every delay, a potential disaster. You could feel it in your pulse, a rhythm that seemed synchronized with the urgency of the world outside. The mission parameters were complex. It was not just a matter of technical execution, it involved strategy, psychology, and the ability to anticipate variables that could not always be predicted. Algorithms and artificial intelligence could model scenarios, but they could not replicate the human intuition that often made the difference between success and failure. You were now the linchpin, the fulcrum upon which the entire operation teetered. The weight of responsibility pressed heavily, but it also clarified your purpose. There was a single trajectory forward, and it demanded focus, clarity, and unwavering commitment. As you prepared to act, your mind raced through contingencies, evaluating risks and rewards in rapid succession. You understood the gravity of the mission not just in terms of technological achievement, but in terms of human impact. Lives depended on your precision. Futures depended on your resolve. Every decision, no matter how small, could cascade into monumental consequences. And all the while, Elon's metaphorical, or perhaps very real, expectation hovered, a silent reminder that the world's pace would not slow for hesitation. You moved. It was a deliberate movement, born of preparation and instinct. Each action was methodical yet fluid, a dance between calculation and courage. Systems responded as anticipated, though the undercurrent of unpredictability was always present. The universe had a way of testing those who dared to bend it to their will, and you knew the test had only just begun. Your mind focused not on fear, but on possibilities, the doors that could be opened if you acted with precision, speed, and vision, and then, as if the universe itself were holding its breath, a breakthrough. A solution that had seemed just beyond reach revealed itself, almost as if it had been waiting for this precise moment of alignment between preparation and action. The tension in the room seemed to shift. A subtle release that carried both relief and new responsibility. You knew, however, that this was only a part of the journey. There were further obstacles ahead, challenges that would demand the same level of decisiveness and courage. Time would continue its relentless march, indifferent to your struggles, and you would need to match its pace or be swept aside. The critical mission was no longer hypothetical. It was here, in real time, demanding everything you could offer. And as the first stage of execution began, your awareness sharpened. Every input mattered. Every variable could alter the outcome. The pressure was immense, but so too was the potential for unprecedented achievement. Elon's waiting was not just a test of skill, but a test of resolve. Could you move with the speed of necessity, the clarity of vision, and the courage to embrace the unknown? Failure was not an option, not because the consequences were unforgiving, but because the mission itself represented something far greater than any individual. It was about vision, progress, and the relentless pursuit of what humanity had always dreamed of achieving. The critical moments ahead would define not just your trajectory, but the trajectory of everyone watching, depending, hoping. And time would not pause. It would not wait, every second mattered. Every decision, every action, every thought could tip the balance toward triumph or disaster. And yet, in that high-stakes reality, a paradox emerged. The clarity of purpose provided freedom. The urgency stripped away distractions, leaving only the essentials, the pure essence of action and intent. In that stripped-down moment, you were not just reacting, you were orchestrating, composing a sequence of events that could alter the course of history. The journey was far from over. Obstacles loomed ahead that were even more complex, more intricate, and more fraught with risk. But you had begun. You had moved. And in that movement, you had already distinguished yourself from hesitation, from inaction, from the ordinary. The mission was critical. Elon's expectation was immense. And time would continue its relentless pace. But so too would you, propelled forward by vision, preparation, and the indomitable drive to succeed. The second stage of the mission demanded a different kind of focus. The first had been about establishing control, confirming alignment, and securing a foothold in a world that seemed to defy predictability. This stage was about momentum. Once you began moving, you couldn't slow down without risking everything you had already set in motion. Every calculation, every action, every adjustment had to be precise, meticulously choreographed with both human intuition and technological precision. Time had already claimed minutes, each one a reminder that hesitation was no longer an option. You reviewed the data streaming in from multiple sources. Telemetry reports, satellite feeds, environmental scans, all converging into a flood of information that could overwhelm an unprepared mind. Yet, paradoxically, the volume of data sharpened your clarity. Each pattern, each anomaly, each subtle shift revealed possibilities and threats alike. You felt as if you were dancing on the edge of an unseen precipice, where one misstep could trigger cascading failure, but one correct move could vault you into unprecedented opportunity. Elon's expectations were both a guiding light and a crucible. He had built a culture where audacity was celebrated but precision was demanded. Vision alone was never enough. Execution mattered, and in these moments, the weight of that execution fell squarely on your shoulders. You realized that your decisions would resonate far beyond the immediate scope of the mission. Systems, teams, even the trajectory of innovation itself could pivot based on what you did in these next critical moments. The environment was hostile, indifferent, and unforgiving. It had a way of exposing even the smallest weakness, of turning the tiniest oversight into an insurmountable problem. You knew this well. The universe had its own timeline, unyielding and uncompromising. And yet, there was an odd beauty in that inevitability. The harshness of reality demanded excellence, and excellence had its own elegance. You felt a strange synergy with the chaos around you, a merging of instinct, intellect, and resolve that allowed you to navigate the turbulence with measured confidence. A critical decision loomed ahead, a choice between two paths, each fraught with risk and potential reward. Both required action, but the consequences of error were starkly different. You felt the weight of history pressing down. Not just the history of this mission, but the history of human ambition, the countless explorers, innovators, and visionaries who had faced impossible odds and pressed forward anyway. You were, in that moment, a continuation of that lineage. The first option was conservative. It promised stability, incremental progress, and a reduced likelihood of immediate disaster. Yet, it lacked the potential for transformative impact. The second option was bold, fraught with uncertainty, but offered the chance to leap far beyond conventional boundaries. It demanded courage, precision, and absolute faith in both your preparation and your instincts. Elon's voice, or the echo of his vision, seemed to whisper in your mind, "Time waits for no one." Hesitation was defeat. Action, no matter how terrifying, was the only path forward. You made your choice. Not because it was easy, but because it was necessary. Every system responded in sequence, executing commands with near-perfect synchronization. Data streamed in, confirming progress, yet uncertainty remained. Unpredictable variables lurked in every corner. You knew this mission was a living entity, dynamic and responsive, demanding constant adaptation. To succeed, you would have to remain fluid, always anticipating, always recalibrating. The pressure intensified. Each passing second carried both the weight of potential success and the shadow of possible failure. You felt your heart quicken, not from fear, but from heightened awareness. Every fiber of your being was attuned to the mission, every thought sharpened by necessity. The stakes were no longer abstract, they were immediate, tangible, and unrelenting. And yet, within that intensity, you discovered a clarity that only true urgency can bring. Progress was evident, but so were new challenges. Unforeseen variables began to emerge, subtle yet significant deviations from predicted outcomes. You adapted, adjusting parameters, fine-tuning responses, and anticipating the next wave of complexity. Time, indifferent to human struggle, continued its relentless march. Elon's vision, once theoretical and distant, was now unfolding in real time, and your role in shaping its trajectory was undeniable. The world outside the control center faded into irrelevance. Noise, distraction, and doubt were stripped away, leaving only the essence of action, precision, focus, and the relentless drive to succeed. Every command entered, every system recalibrated, every decision executed contributed to the delicate choreography of the mission. There was no room for error, no tolerance for delay. The countdown was internal as well as external, a measure of both time and resolve, and then came the breakthrough. A complex system that had resisted alignment for hours suddenly responded. Algorithms adjusted seamlessly, trajectories corrected themselves, and the path forward became clear. Relief washed over you, but only briefly, for you knew that victory was not a single moment, it was a continuous process of adaptation, vigilance, and action. Time would not pause. Elon's expectations would not diminish. The mission, critical and unyielding, demanded constant engagement. You moved into the next phase, more confident yet equally cautious. Lessons learned from previous challenges informed every step, but the landscape remained unpredictable. Success required a combination of learned skill, instinctive judgment, and the ability to anticipate the unforeseen. Every action, no matter how minor, could influence the trajectory of events in ways impossible to fully predict. The stakes were immense, the environment unrelenting, and the margin for error razor-thin, yet, despite the enormity of the task, a profound sense of purpose emerged. The mission was not merely a sequence of technical achievements. It was a manifestation of human potential. Visionaries like Elon had laid the foundation, but it was up to you to execute, adapt, and push beyond the limitations of the possible. The critical mission was no longer abstract, it was lived, experienced, and felt in every decision, every movement, every heartbeat. As the mission progressed, the complexity intensified. What had initially seemed like manageable variables now multiplied exponentially. Systems interacted in ways that no single simulation could fully predict, and each success revealed hidden challenges lying in wait. Your awareness had to expand, not just to the immediate task at hand, but to the cascading effects of every choice. Every adjustment, every minor calibration. The mission was no longer a linear sequence, it had become a living, breathing entity, responsive and volatile. The environment was merciless. Unforeseen disturbances emerged from seemingly inert factors, a subtle shift in trajectory, a fluctuation in energy outputs, a minor delay in a communication channel. Each could, in theory, compromise the entire operation. Yet, amidst the chaos, you found focus. Where others might see unpredictability as a threat, you recognized it as information, signals to interpret, patterns to decode, opportunities to exploit. In that recognition lay the difference between mere participation and transformative action. Elon's vision, once a distant ideal, now loomed as a tangible, immediate reality. The audacity of it, so often dismissed by the world, was no longer theoretical. It existed in the tasks you executed, the data streams you monitored, the split-second decisions that dictated outcomes. His expectation was implicit but inescapable: the mission could not fail. Every delay, every misstep, had consequences not just for yourself, but for the broader trajectory of innovation and human potential. Time would not wait, and the world would not forgive failure. A critical juncture approached, a choice between maintaining the current trajectory or initiating a high-risk maneuver that could either accelerate success dramatically or lead to catastrophic failure. The calculations were intricate, balancing probabilities, environmental factors, system tolerances, and the unknown unknowns. Intuition, honed through experience and relentless preparation, became as essential as mathematical precision. The decision demanded courage, clarity, and a willingness to embrace uncertainty. You weighed the options swiftly. Hesitation would be fatal. To succeed, you had to commit fully, with unwavering resolve. The choice was made. Commands were executed, systems adjusted, and the high-risk maneuver commenced. The outcome was uncertain, but momentum was now in your favor. Every response was monitored in real time, feedback loops analyzed, and adjustments made with surgical precision. The world outside was irrelevant, the mission existed in its own temporal reality, where every microsecond mattered, and every action carried disproportionate weight. Unexpected variables arose almost immediately. Minor deviations threatened to destabilize the maneuver, but your rapid responses stabilized the system. The sequence that had seemed impossible now unfolded, step by step, as if the mission itself were cooperating with your intent. Relief was fleeting. You understood that victory was provisional, contingent upon sustained engagement and adaptability. Complacency was a luxury you could not afford. The tension was palpable, not just in your mind, but in the collective awareness of everyone connected to the mission. Teams monitored outcomes, adjusted parameters, and maintained readiness for contingencies that might never manifest. Coordination was critical. A single misalignment could cascade into failure. Yet, there was also a shared sense of purpose, a recognition that the stakes demanded excellence and precision beyond ordinary human effort. The mission was a crucible, testing not only technology, but resolve, ingenuity, and endurance. Hours seemed to collapse into minutes. The perception of time itself altered, as urgency sharpened focus and heightened awareness. Every input, every decision, every motion became magnified in significance. You operated at the intersection of intuition and calculation. Where instinct guided precision and preparation enabled agility. The critical nature of the mission created a paradoxical clarity. The chaos of unpredictability was simultaneously the framework through which you navigated toward success. Progress was measurable yet fragile. Successes emerged incrementally, each one hard-won, each one reinforcing the need for vigilance. The mission demanded continuous adaptation, constant recalibration, and unyielding attention to detail. Errors, even minor ones, had the potential to propagate, threatening to unravel hours of work in an instant. Yet, the same conditions that imposed risk also provided opportunity, the ability to observe, analyze, and intervene in real time created pathways to outcomes that had once seemed impossible. The gravity of Elon's expectation became increasingly tangible. His vision was not a passive goal, it was a mandate for action. Every challenge was a test, every obstacle a measure of resolve, every success a stepping stone toward broader achievement. The mission's critical nature underscored a simple truth: time would not pause for deliberation, and opportunity favored those who acted decisively. You were acutely aware that failure was not an option, not merely because of personal stakes, but because the implications extended far beyond your immediate control. And then, as the high-risk maneuver approached its most delicate phase, a new set of challenges emerged. Subtle environmental fluctuations. Previously undetected anomalies began to interact with the systems in unpredictable ways. The potential for failure was real, immediate, and immense. Yet, the groundwork you had laid, preparation, anticipation, and relentless vigilance, provided the means to respond. Adaptation became the operative principle: observe, interpret, act, recalibrate. Each response was executed with precision born of experience. Systems stabilized, anomalies corrected, trajectories maintained. The mission, once on the brink of chaos, regained momentum. The sense of urgency, ever present, did not diminish. It sharpened focus, heightened awareness, and intensified engagement. Success was incremental but undeniable. The critical mission was no longer hypothetical. It was real, evolving, and dependent upon your continuous, decisive action. The breakthrough, when it came, was both profound and measured. Complex systems aligned, objectives achieved, and progress validated. Yet, Victory was not an endpoint, it was a moment within a continuum. The mission demanded sustained engagement, vigilance, and the willingness to confront the next layer of complexity. Elon's waiting was not a threat, it was a reminder that time would not halt, that the world's pace would not slow, and that the critical nature of the mission required constant, unwavering commitment.